right, so good afternoon and welcome to our weekly live lab. You'll see that it's kind of switched up from weekly class meeting to our weekly live lab. Things are going to be a little bit different. We are going to change things up a little bit, kind of freshen it up, get away from the hardcore lecture stuff that it's kind of hard to sit through, and try to do some more interactive and fun things and things that the curriculum doesn't show y'all, the real world things. Like it gives you the knowledge, the base knowledge, but you also need to know what it's going to be like when you're sitting there in that office that first day or 6 months down the road, whenever. It's always helpful to know what you're in store for, right? So that's what I'm going to try to do in our live labs. So right now, us being in coding, y'all have heard me say that the coding that we do in class is not exactly what you're going to see or what you're going to be doing out in the workforce, and it's not. I think last week we talked vaguely about super bills and how when you go to the doctor and you see a doctor, there's usually a nurse or somebody that comes in and asks you what you're there for and gets, the basic information before the doctor comes in, right? Well, usually that person almost always, if they're writing on a super bill. They're taking notes about your visit on a super bill to pass along to the billing department, the records department, wherever it needs to go after that. And a lot of times now it's actually done digitally. A lot of them have iPads or laptops that they bring right into the room with them and enter everything in straight into the EHR system. So what I want to show y'all today, what we're going to look at, let me share my screen, is some examples of what super bills look like. Now, I could not, due to HIPAA and confidentiality and different stuff, I could not show y'all any of the ones that I have in my records from actual clinics and things that I've worked at. I can't, I wish I could. If I could share my spreadsheets and paperwork with y'all, I would so do that. But I can't. So I have to use like different templates and stuff like that to show you guys. So do you guys see this Excel template right here, the spreadsheet? Okay. So when they make any kind of form, any type of document that has to have dedicated fields and different columns and rows and stuff like this, that has to list out a bunch of information, a lot of times they will build it in Microsoft Excel. Okay. This is not exactly what it looks like once it's printed out. Like all the little extra lines and stuff don't appear there once it's printed out. All you would see is the lines that they have drawn in here, the darker lines and stuff like that. So it would look like just a basic form sheet. And usually it's specific to that clinic. It'll be like on letterhead. They'll have the clinic name or the doctor's name, their address, and all their information. A lot of times, if you're in a practice that has multiple physicians, it will list all of them up there, and you have to check off which physician it was that did that visit with that patient. But you'll see up at the top, you're going to have your patient's name and information always right there, okay? Because they have to know whose account this applies to, right? They need to know whose record. So you'll see on there, on the the right side, in the middle row, there's an MR number. That's the patient's medical record number. Okay, so it'll have their name. Date of birth is always a thing in the medical office. You're always going to, that's almost the first question you ask people is, what's your date of birth? And there's a reason why. And I'm a prime example of that. Doctor I used to go to, he had 2 Brandy Guillory's. Well, guess what? Our date of birth was the same. Just so happened she lived 20 minutes down the road from me. So I had a skin cancer right here. I don't know if you can see my scar, but I had this spot and I needed it looked at. So he was supposed to send me in a referral. And I called their office like 3 weeks later and I was like, I've never gotten a call from the doctor. And they were like, well, we sent it in. And sure enough, they had sent it for the other Brady Guillory, not me. So she got a call from a doctor that she didn't know nothing about. But that's why. You know, if they'd have gone one step further than the June 9th, they'd have seen that I was a year older than her. But they stopped at the June 9th because, you know, how many Brandi Guillory's with a June 9th birthday? Who knows? But anywho, you're always going to want their date of birth, phone numbers, alternate contact is optional, your date of service or service date, or you will also see that listed as DOS, date of service, on a lot of things. There are a lot of acronyms in this job. DOS, date of service, DOB, date of birth, EOB, explanation of benefits, MR record number, EHR, electronic health record. I mean, the list goes flipping on and on, really. But so it'll have, usually the super bill will, on the left hand side, it'll list your E&Ms, your evaluation and management codes. And you see, let me zoom in a little bit so you guys can see a little bit better, maybe. All right, so you see over here it starts with a 99201 new client E&M, and that's all your O1s to O5s. And you see they have the time frames there, and they're basically, what they're going to do is they're just going to check off which one it is. Okay, established patient. If it's not a brand new patient, they'll check off one of these. If it's not like a basic office visit, if it was an education or counseling visit, they'll check off from this area, okay? And you'll see that it keeps going. Preventative visits, wellness visits, smoking cessation, and this is a short list, and apparently this is from a gynecologist gynecologist office of some type, or maybe a urologist, because I'm looking, the common procedures that this office does is implant insertion or removal, vasectomy, sterilization, diaphragm fitting, IUC insertion and removal. So this is a gynecological office of some sort. But it'll be specialized for whatever kind of office you work in. They'll put their most common things that they do right there. Okay, and if it's something that is not included in this list, they'll have an area like down here where it says complication management, additional codes, complication, additional procedure, supplies. They'll have additional space for you to write in whatever needs to be written in, or for whoever to write in whatever needs to be written in. And a lot of the times what we do, we'll get this paper, like the office at the end of the day, this is how it worked 10 years ago when everything was still done with paper. The office would make a file folder of these. They'd sit in a little tray all day long, and at the end of the day, they would take this stack of super bills, and there's one of two ways that they could do it, or actually 3 ways that they could do it. We can email it securely. They'll email you a big old file. Number 2, you can fax it over. Not the most reliable. Fax is a pain in the behind, because it's heavily dependent on your phone lines, and it's just a pain. So email is definitely preferable to fax, or in my company's case, some of the clinics that we dealt with were not comfortable sending things electronically, so we literally had a girl whose job it was to drive from. Every day she would start at our office, and she would drive around town to doctors' offices and clinics and pick up paperwork. She was a courier, and she had this little wheeled, lockable suitcase because HIPAA. Okay, her car had to be outfitted with a certain lockable thing. When she got in her car, that locked case went into a lockable area in her vehicle so that HIPAA was maintained at all time. Okay. And it was a whole thing. She'd come in wheeling her little case, and her and the manager would sit down and do the little code and get the papers out and whatever. And it's a whole thing. But that's how serious HIPAA is. It's a thing. So they would send it paper. All right. And she would then get whoever worked on that clinic, she'd go give them their paperwork for the day or whatever. Or however often that clinic wanted you to pick up stuff, because some of them would only be once a week. So then you get a stack that's like this, that you get to work through the entire next week. But say lovey. But so anyway, So now, most of it is not done by paper. Most people in clinics have embraced the digital age and doing things electronically because number one, time, number two, money, number three, they're almost making it to where you have to now. Like you have to. Almost all claims have to be filed electronically now. You can hardly ever mail in or fax in a claim anymore and get it processed in a proper amount of time or correctly or whatever. They really like everything to go through the clearinghouses and then go to the separate entities after that. Which is fine because, again, time and money. The longer it takes the insurance company to get the claim and to process the claim, the longer it takes the doctor to get his paycheck, okay? The longer it takes your funds to come back to you. And then think about this. A doctor does a service on one day, all right? Let's say, Blue Cross. Per Blue Cross, you have 30 days. That office has 30 days to file that claim with the insurance company, all right? If you don't file it in that 30 days, guess what? You don't get paid, or at least not by the insurance. Hopefully you can talk the patient into paying you something. But it's not the patient's fault that you didn't file the claim with their insurance. So you can't hold them responsible. They had the insurance, it would have paid. It's not the patient's fault. So you just lost money for your doctor. See, so the faster we can get the claims in via electronically, the faster we get our money back. If we, think about this, okay? Let's say you file a claim paper. It takes a week to get to the insurance company. It takes them a week to process it. It takes another week for you to get back a denial. So you're already out 3 weeks, okay? But you did file it, so it's going to get paid. Once a claim is filed, you've met timely filing guidelines. You've filed it the first time, so you've met the guideline for that. Anything after that, they allow for. Like if they respond to you, you have a certain amount of time to respond back. And it's different for different insurance companies. You're going to have to kind of learn those things once you get into the field and you start working with different insurance companies. You'll figure out and find out what their guidelines are. And most of them, it's 90 days to respond to a denial. You have 90 days. So what if the notice that the claim was denied never gets back to you? What do y'all think y'all would do? What do you think would be the process for that? How would you catch that? If you filed a claim on a random account, you sent the claim off, and you just never heard back from them. What do you think the steps would be to catch that claim, so to speak?
You'd probably have to reach out to the insurance. And if the insurance never caught it, and double check, make sure the patient is insured, and then probably refile.
Depending. You refile if it's denied and you can correct it. A lot of the times it's denied incorrectly and you have to call and argue with somebody about it. There are certain cases where it's denied, it's a legitimate denial, and you just have to roll with it. Like, the patient's plan doesn't cover that service. That's not a covered service for that patient. Well, then you get to have an uncomfortable conversation with the patient. But it's not our fault, nor is it their fault. Your insurance company does not cover that service. So that's why we have patients sign a form with their new patient paperwork that says, if for any reason your insurance does not cover the services provided, you are the guarantor and you will cover the cost. So we can bill them on the back end if their insurance does not, if it's a legitimate denial and it's just a not covered service. But how would you catch it? How would you know to call that insurance company? Or to check back on that account at some point? Because like when say you work for an outsourced billing company and you've got XYZ clinic that they hand you and they go, okay, you're going to do all of the Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance claims for XYZ clinic. And they give you this EHR system and all of XYZ's patients are in that system. Like, how do you know where to start? How do you know what patient to look up? You know what I'm saying? How do you know, like, at what time frame you last looked at a claim to know to check back on it? See what I'm saying? So let me give y'all the down low on that. Basically, what you're gonna do when you're doing billing and you're working claims and denials and accounts and different things, you're going to work off of different reports. Almost all EHR systems or practice management software and stuff like that can run reports, and what they will do is called aging reports or outstanding reports, and it's outstanding insurance is what it is. And it's basically they run a spreadsheet, something like this. But when you print it out, it looks a little bit different. It doesn't look like a typical spreadsheet. It's more legible because you'll have all your insurances listed for said clinic, and then it'll have a column that says 30 days, a column that has 60 days, a column that has 90 days, and a column that says 120 plus days. All right, and that's how far out these accounts are. And what it's going to do, it's going to give you a dollar amount for each of those insurances. So let's say that XYZ clinic has $100,000 in outstanding insurance claims. All of those different insurance totals add up to $100,000. Okay, that's your balance. That's your AR balance or your accounts receivable balance. That's all the money that is owed to you, that is outstanding. Okay, and they set it up by columns so you can see how old it is, basically. And basically what you would do is you would then pull another report and single out those insurances. You would say, okay, I want to pull all of Blue Cross Blue Shield that is at least 120 days old. I want to look at all the oldest stuff first. And usually the way I do it, once I have that information, that data of all those old accounts, then I'm going to sort that information. I want the highest dollar amount first. Highest dollar amounts first, make the biggest moves first. Get the most effect first, right? Figure out what's going on with those high dollar stuff. Because I tell you what, if you've got 10 outstanding claims that you're working on your desk and your boss comes by, they're not going to be worried about the one for $10. They're going to be worried about that $1,500 one. Okay? They're going to care less about that $10, but that one for that implantation procedure that was $2,000, they're going to care a lot about getting that one paid. A lot. So make those your priority. Highest balances first. Oldest first, because they need to get gone. If they're 120 plus days, if it's the patient's balance, number one, that's not going to come up in an insurance report, but patient balances are another thing. That's a whole nother report that you can pull. And it may be something that when you work on XYZ clinic, one day you may work on Blue Cross Blue Shield. The next day you may work on patient balances. The next day you may work on Medicare or Medicaid. Okay? Or you could be in a situation where you do only commercial insurances and you work on 50 different clinics, but just that one insurance. Billing offices are set up different ways. Now, if you work for a private practice, one doctor, one set of doctors in a smaller clinic situation, then if you get hired to do the billing, you're probably going to be doing all the billing for that. And you may not be the only person doing billing, depending on how busy their office is. But those people, they do the billing, which is working denied claims, getting those paid, filing the claims in the first place. If they're not outsourcing that to somebody else, if they're doing that in-house, they could have you doing that. They'll have you the super bills will go to you to verify, then you will send that on to the insurance company. All right. And then you wait for a response from the insurance company and go from there. And then you work that account or patient accounts, whatever it is, whether it's insurance, patients, whatever, you will work that until it's resolved. You never stop working it till it's resolved. Generally, I would aim to hit accounts at least every 30 days. Sometimes there's so many that you can't hit them all in 30 days. But because that's the billing cycle, right? Is every 30 days, 30, 60, 90, 120. So every 30 days is how often I would try to hit every patient account. And sometimes it worked out that way and sometimes it didn't. But if I got to account, okay, I just looked at this last week, I'm leaving it alone for now. But I would put a note in there that said, this account came up on report, was worked last week, we'll hit next time. Okay? Every time you open an account, document what you did, why you opened it, why you looked at it. Document. Okay? If it's not documented, it did not happen. And I mean document everything, time. What time you called somebody, how long you were on the phone with that somebody, what their name was. If it was an insurance company, try to get a reference number. Just document everything. CY guys. CY. Because there is stuff in this job that can come back on you. You know, it's your job to keep the money flowing. So when the money doesn't flow, they're going to come back and look at the people who are supposed to make the money flow, right? And they'll start making you pull reports of what you're working on every day. What all did you work on today? What accounts? What are you prioritizing? Things like that. And sometimes companies will be very, very clear on what they want you to work on. And now usually they will not do this to a newer employee, somebody who's not experienced. But like me right now, I would get an account. Like more than likely if I took over an account right now, they would say, here's your login. Get to work. Like that would be it. Like here's your login to our system, do your thing. Like go in there and do your thing. And the first thing I would go in and do is start pulling those reports. I would go in and I pull aging reports and see where our billing's at. Where's our money? How's our money looking? Okay. One of the first things I did when I got into this industry, the first account I had was a charity account for a big operation in Alexandria that shall remain nameless. But when I took over this account, the clinic had been open for a year and no one had ever touched the billing. From the day the doors opened to the moment I sat down at that desk and got my login for that account, no one had ever touched the billing for a year. So you can imagine the amount of stuff that got wrote off. You could imagine. And it was crazy. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, luckily for them, they were a charity thing. So they were looking at writing off most of it anyway. So it didn't bite them in the butt like it would have any other type of facility. That would bankrupt some companies, some doctors' offices and clinics. That would bankrupt them. Okay. They can't stay in business if they can't pay people's paychecks, you know what I mean? Or buy their supplies and stuff like that. So we got to keep the money flowing. So that's where the super bill comes in, and where most of the coding that you guys are going to see and work off of, it's going to come from something like this, okay? And all you're going to, like I said, most of the time it's going to be somebody else has already come through here and marked off the stuff, and you're just verifying what they marked off with what is in the doctor's note. You're going to read the doctor's note and look on here and make sure that everything's on there that needs to be there. And then you're going to type it into the little claim form in their EHR system and click submit. And you're going to send it off to the insurance company. And that's like it with coding. That's it with coding as far as what y'all are going to have to look at and stuff like that. Any questions, concerns? about chapter 12 or anything that y'all are working on in the curriculum or anything that I've talked about here today? Any you want details about anything? Anything y'all are curious about? No?
So if you misspell a word, do you have to like redo it everything all over again, or
Depends on the word. And like what you mean if like redo it? Like refile the claim if you misspelled something?
like if you misspell, misplace numbers, stuff like that, you have to like redo it all over
Yeah.
again?
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. That is the easiest way. Um, the things that are most important, you're not going to have to type in like procedure names and things like medical terminology stuff. You're not, all that's probably going to be saved in there for you. But the things you're going to have to be careful about, the patient's name, big time, date of birth, big time, social security number, address, insurance ID number, that's a major one. Because any of those things being off by one letter, one number, one anything, one space, will get your claim sent right back to you. Sent right back. Any of those. So yeah, we want everything always to be as accurate as possible. Now, is 100% accuracy realistic? No. No, we are human. We are not machines. We are going to make mistakes. We are going to be tired some days. We're going to be sick sometime, right? We're going to be distracted sometime when you're working on XYZ's claim and the mouth of the South in the cubicle next to you will not shut up. You're going to be distracted and you may mistype something. It happens. Mistakes do happen. We just need to make them as few as possible. As few as possible. This is one of those jobs where if you are consistently making mistakes, you will not last long. It can cost you your job in the long run if it's consistent. Now, everybody knows there's a learning curve, okay? Everybody knows there's a learning curve. But you got to, especially in the beginning, try to be as accurate as possible with the information you're typing in. Like I said, when I got in this, I did data entry. All I did was type in super bills all day. That's all I did. The coders didn't want to, it was more valuable for the coders to spend their time coding than for me. Like, I can do all this grunt work typing. Let them do the coding. They're the experienced coders. So that's, let the person just getting in the door do the grunt work and learn how it works. And that's what I did. I did data entry for a year almost a year before I ever touched my first account or called my first insurance company. So you guys are going to be at least a couple years ahead of me where I started at, I remember the first time I called an insurance company, it was Medicaid. And I didn't even get to a person before I had to hang up and ask somebody a question. It was the first automated thing that came on and said, please enter your physician's tax ID or NPI. I had to hang up and stick my head over the cubicle and go, what the hell's an NPI? And where do I find a tax ID? What is this? They had me calling and nobody had even told me what information I need. I had to go to somebody and be like, hey, what is this that they're asking me for? And she showed me on the super bill where it was. And in the computer system, she showed me where it was and where I could find all this stuff. And I got back on the phone. And, this was my first call. I had no idea what I was doing. So I entered the tax ID and the NPI and the automatic thing. And I get to a person and she's like, what can I help you with? And I'm like, I'm working on a claim. And it looks like it didn't pay. And I had no idea what else to say to her. So thankfully, and this is kind of funny, for like 2 years, every time I called Medicaid, I got the same representative. Her name was Cora. She was fabulous. We became good friends. She was somewhere in Baton Rouge. I have no idea. But So thankfully, Miss Cora had been working for Medicaid for like 30 years, and she's like, "Oh, Shad, you're new. Let me help you out." And I was like, "Thank you, Jesus. I got a nice person." Because trust me, sometimes you don't get the nice person. You get Miss Pam. Miss Pam's not nice. You'd either get Cora or Pam when you called Medicaid. You wanted Cora. You did not want Pam. Pam would make you work for it. But Miss Cora, she's like, "All right, look, down at the bottom. What is it? What code is it telling? What 2-digit code is it telling you there? That's your denial reason." So I look down at the bottom. There's a legend on every EOB that says why it was denied, right? Your claims will be listed, and usually like at the end of the line there, it'll have like a little code, and you can reference that code at the bottom of the page and read out your denial. So I said, okay, it says code number 12. It says no authorization for services. And she says, okay, well, this is what that means. And it either means, number one, there was no referral. If it was a referral was needed, no referral was sent. If a pre-authorization was needed, they didn't get that. So it sounded like some type of authorization was required for this visit. Nobody got the authorization. That's why they denied the claim. Okay. All right. And here's the thing about no authorization. No authorization is one of those denial reasons. It's like a blanket. It'll cover many different denial reasons, and they'll slap no auth on there. Okay. I think United Healthcare went through like a 2-year span where every single claim automatically, the first time you sent it in, got denied no auth. Because seriously, for 2 years, I think that happened to me. And everybody else who was working United Healthcare at the time said the same thing. But it's kind of no auth is kind of like a blanket thing. When it does that, you have to call and find out why. You have to call and find out why. Now, thankfully, nowadays, a lot of insurance companies have it set up where you can do a lot of things electronically, like Blue Cross in particular. You can now appeal and ask questions about claims without they're trying their dangest to get you to not talk to a person. They really are. They don't want you on the phone with somebody. If they cannot pay somebody an hourly wage to sit there and wait for you to call them, they're going to do that. They have consistently made it harder and harder to get a human being over the phone for the past 10 years. It's been getting consecutively harder for a decade. Okay. Eventually you will not be able to get a person on the phone. I wholeheartedly believe that. And they've just about got it there with the systems that they have set up. You almost don't need to now. You can click a button and appeal it, click a button and ask a question, and you'll get a response within a couple of days instead of having to sit for 45 minutes waiting for somebody to take your call and then arguing with them for 20 minutes to get no resolution. You just wasted an hour of your day and got nothing done. That's what a lot of our days used to look like. I can tell y'all that I have sat on the phone just waiting to get through to a person with the VA for an hour and a half. An hour and a half, just waiting, just listening to cue music, waiting to get to a human being. Ridiculous, ridiculous. Now, like I said, thankfully, things are getting more, expeditious as technology is making things easier for us to transfer data securely and stuff like that. But it's taken a while for it to get like that. But yeah, that was a good question, Patricia. But yeah, we want everything. If your stuff is misspelled, more than likely it'll kick back to you. And you'll have to, now you don't have to retype the whole thing. And a lot of it, Patricia, is already going to be in there. All you're going to be typing in is verifying the codes and clicking submit. You're not going to have to be typing a whole bunch of stuff. It's more important, the typing in of the data is more important for the person who is putting the patient into the system the first time. When they're creating that patient account, that's when that information's got to really be on point, because that's where it goes wrong. If they put the wrong information, then everybody else has got the wrong information all the way down the line. And it'll eventually trace back and you can get it corrected and stuff like that. But yeah, but you're not going to have to type a lot of stuff. And if you do make a mistake like that, you don't have to start the whole thing over. You can correct that item or whichever items you need to and refile it like that. You don't have to correct everything or restart anything. And like I said, everything's digital, so there's not a whole lot of typing up and stuff like that to do. The most typing I ever did was notes and documenting and stuff like that. Or writing an appeal letter. I was kind of like the appeals queen because I'm an arguer. I like to argue my point, like pay my doctor. So I could write the crap out of an appeal letter. So I did that a lot. And a lot of the other girls in the office, if they had to write an appeal letter, they'd be like, "Hey, give me one of yours." So I'd email them one, and they'd copy and paste, and you can do that kind of thing too. And you'll come up with you'll either look at somebody else's that they did, and you'll kind of make your template off of that, or you'll do your one and save it, and then you'll use that as a template going forward. We work smart. We don't work hard. We're not typing up a new letter for every Tom, Dick, and Harry that needs a claim change. We're just not. We can come up with a good template and use that sucker over and over and over again. Yep. All right. Any other questions, concerns, and curiosities? Anything?
Instead of trying to get people on the phone, are we moving towards more of a robotic AI thing?
Not yet. Because here's the thing about billing. You have to, number one, medical stuff changes too fast for AI to keep up with it. Like, we went to this, actually, it was kind of neat. Unitech sent us to this seminar in Baton Rouge, and it was about, one of the guest speakers did this thing about AI. She works for a company that develops it for educational purposes. And, one of the things we talked about was AI, you can ask it a question, right? And it'll give you whatever information it has. But that software, because it is at the basis of it, it's software, right? It's a machine. So it's been programmed. And somewhere in that program, there's a date. That software is only giving you information up to a certain date. It's not giving you today's information. AI cannot keep up with medical stuff because we change almost yearly. So I don't think AI is going to be an issue for us. And the thing about billing and coding and stuff like that is it takes logic, some of it. It takes figuring out, okay, well, if they spent this amount of time, but there was this amount of paperwork, like AI is not going to be able to figure out unless you give it parameters. Like, I guess you could come up with some software that could figure these things out for you, but it's not going to take the place of us who have to look at something, think about what went wrong, and try to fix that. You know what I'm saying? So I don't see, like, I use AI to do appeal letters, emails, all kind of stuff. eBay item descriptions, I mean, you name it. AI is very, very cool, but it's not going to be the end all be all. I think that a lot of people think it is. It's more,
It's a
like,
tool and not a coworker.
right. It's a tool. It is a resource, and a good one, a really good one. But it can't do everything. It can't think. Like, you can ask it something, it can spit information to you, but it can't think. It can't reason like a human being can reason. You know what I mean? So it can't do it all. There's some things that you're not going to be able to replace people with. And I think because of the way that medicine changes, there's, like I said, it's going to be a great tool for a lot of things, but I don't think it's going to have that much effect on the way billing and coding and stuff like that works. Great question, though. Good question. Make me think today. I love it. Any other questions or concerns, guys? Curiosities? All right. So next week, I was thinking about what we're going to do for our live labs. I'm really excited about this because I hate lecturing. I don't like sitting here just talking to you. If I'm going to talk at y'all, I'd rather it be in my voice and something that I'm passionate about, and not just reading off the card, the PowerPoint slide, and stuff that I think is really going to be beneficial for y'all to know about also. So I'm excited about the labs thing. So I was thinking that next week, what I want to do is, one of the things that some of the employers have asked was that, our students, they're looking for folks to be more comfortable talking to patients and talking to insurance companies, regarding billed amounts, why the patient owes what the patient does, when to refer the patient back to the insurance company. Because at a certain point, the patient can call you all day long and you guys go, look, I can only go by what the insurance company tells me. This is what they've told me. If you think that's incorrect, you'll have to go back to them. There is a point where that comes into play, but it's at a point you have to do your due diligence first. You have to do your job and explain your side of it first, to where they understand that, okay, they've done what they can do. Their hands are tied. I got to take it back over here. And most of the time they don't want to do that, because insurance is hard to understand and talk to. But so I think next week we're going to do some fun stuff where you guys, if y'all will play along, will pretend I'm gonna put up a script for y'all, and I'm gonna play the rude patient, and I'm gonna call y'all with attitude, and we're gonna see how you handle it. I'm gonna ask you some hard questions. I'm trying to think about how to best do it, because sometimes when you're looking at it, like there have been times where I was looking at a patient's account, and in order to explain it correctly to them, I had to get them off the phone so I could sit there and look at it and wrap my head around it, all the different dates of services and where payments had been made and adjustments had been made. I had to sit there and wrap my head around it before I could explain it accurately to the patient. So I'm kind of trying to think about how we're going to do that. I'm thinking what I might do is just show y'all, put up on the page one of my billing statements, and I'll ask y'all questions about that, and then we'll go over how to figure those amounts and answer those questions correctly and stuff like that. Because that, I'll tell you right now, that was when either calling the insurance or talking to a patient on the phone about their bill. Those were the two scariest things for me, the things that I were most nervous about. So we're going to practice some of that and get you guys more comfortable and confident. I had to step way outside of my comfort zone with that. So I don't want you guys having those same fears and concerns going into a new job, So, all right. Well, if y'all don't have anything else for me, guys, that's all I've got for y'all. And we ran a bit longer than I planned to. So sorry about that. But I think it was a lot of good information. But y'all have a wonderful weekend.